Aloha all. This is Samana with Unconventional Insights. This is my podcast number 43. I'm calling this Adapting to What Is. It's May 7th, my brother's birthday. Happy birthday, Sam. And it's also this early morning is full moon in Scorpio. I'm actually taping this the day before, but we're already in Scorpio. We're just not full moon yet. So for some of you that are astrology fans. Okay, so this is the last of the super moons. So I hope wherever you're at on the planet, you can look up and have a clear moonlit sky. And the supermoon means that it appears closer to the planet, so quite beautiful. Now, Scorpio, I love Scorpio. So the full moon, again, is the flashlight shining into our shadow area. So wherever Scorpio is in your chart, whatever house it represents, if it's in your sun sign or your rising or moon or any of that, your Venus, it's getting lit up this month for the next 30 days. So Scorpio overall represents sex, death, and transformation. How about with this pandemic globally? That sounds very Scorpion-like to me because all of those issues are coming up. People that are in isolation, either alone or with a partner, sex is an issue, not having it, being tired of the person you're with, having a lot of it, whatever's going on, those are issues with our sexuality. Death, there is actual death all around us. And there is, with that death, physical and emotional, spiritual, mental, the potential for transformation. So I want to focus more on the internal, the transformative aspect of Scorpio. That goes from the serpent and the dirt up into its highest form of the phoenix, that it soars above and it sees all, and it's all-encompassing wisdom. So in Scorpio, I have a lot of it in my chart, so I understand it. And when I was younger, I got the worst of it, which could have to do with possessiveness and jealousy and addictions and all those kind of darker hidden shadow parts. And the higher parts is the insight and the purity of body, the cleansing of the body and mind, the meditative aspect, all of those things. But looking at yourself, if we're adapting to what is, the skills we need is to be as present and aware and awake as we can be. So the question posed with the Scorpio moon is, what part of you is ready to die so that a new part can emerge and strengthen? So you could ask, what habit or pattern or belief, what mechanism? So I'm going to talk a lot about mechanisms in this podcast today, which I've mentioned them in other podcasts, because when I do my counseling, that's a big thing that we do is we try to see what the false self is, what mechanism is in play, and to try to peel that away, to find safety, to find acceptance in this now, in what's happening now, so that the authentic person can emerge. So right now, our world is experiencing a variety of emotions and thinking thought processes, ranging from boredom because you're isolated to actual survival and devastation. So what we have previously known is no longer and will no longer be. So we're dealing with sickness, with poverty, with death, either people we know that are close to us or just our community of brothers and sisters on the planet. Our brains create these mechanisms. The mechanisms help us to adapt and cope with our current life's experiences. So again, the brain moves in when the system is weak, and it will strengthen it by creating a device, a false persona, a false way of being or handling, adapting, so that the inner vulnerable self can be protected. However, some mechanisms were created back in our childhood. Maybe we had past wounds and abuse, and the external circumstances in our life as adults have long since changed. Yet, the mechanism is still in place. When that mechanism is in place, it's preventing the birth of our authentic self in that area to have the ability to move in and show up and emerge. So, when in times of stress, we utilize tools to get through these hard spaces. So, I've been in Austin. In June will be 5 years. But when I left Maui, I had my business of 20 plus years. I lived on Maui 30 plus years. The ending and closure and demise of that whole identity was one of the most significant deaths of my life. And at that time, I was under so much emotional stress. I ended up in the ER. I thought I was having a heart attack. And it wasn't a heart attack. It was actually an anxiety attack. And I needed more emotional support than usual. So, of my Cavalier King Charles dogs, my smallest one, Sabai, became literally my emotional support animal. She started sleeping in the bed with me because I couldn't sleep at night because I'd wake up with these panicked thoughts that everything I know is collapsing and ending and over and I'm powerless. And if I couldn't get my mind to focus on something, to harness it, to concentrate it in an area, I would end up back in the ER. And it was proof, like I was fragile, and it was happening. So petting Sabai would help. I would turn on my TV and kind of focus on whatever was on TV so that I could prevent my thoughts from taking me over. And I needed this distraction to get me through these hard times. Now, a commitment I made to myself a long time ago was that whenever I was having a challenging time, I would never use alcohol or drugs or anything to numb that, because I know that is how addictions are created, is when something is hard and we use a numbing element, any of these mechanisms, and depend too much on it. It not only prevents us from actually experiencing this pain, which the pain underneath it has a lesson to it, but it also will kind of postpone the growth or any of that. And I'm not saying that we don't need mechanisms when we're having hard times, like going through a divorce, going through death, going through changes, going through losing your job. You need a way to kind of be able to adapt to what's happening right now. And some of these mechanisms are there to sustain us, to protect us. So I'm going to talk about the difference of healthy mechanisms versus unhealthy mechanisms. But I want to make that distinction about when we make a commitment to ourselves, what kind of life we actually want to show up for. Or are we going to just do we're just going to numb it out because it's too painful and we'd rather. I'd say, for me, if I have a glass of wine or champagne, I only do it when I'm happy, because it's like a treat to myself. I have friends that smoke pot or whatever. I mean, if you do something occasionally as a treat, I believe everything in moderation is acceptable. I have my own personal preferences, and that's fine, but I don't put it on someone else. But when it's done on a daily basis so that you don't feel, it prevents your growth. It prevents your emotional growth. So sometimes we need help and a buffer, and as we get stronger, we can revisit it and look at it deeper and more and get the full effect. Sometimes it's over decades that it takes time for us to be able to accept something that was so devastating, to see all the points of learning from it, all the teachings, all the gems inside of it, not just the pain. And anyways, so now looking at healthy mechanisms or coping tools versus unhealthy. First, let's talk about unhealthy and see if you relate to any of these. So these are not judgments. These are just your mental checklist to see if we think of these unhealthy mechanisms and know that this is not your authentic self, this is not you adapting to what is or accepting life as it is, or learning your fullest, utilizing your fullest potential to grow and evolve. So these unhealthy mechanisms, we isolate alcohol, drugs, and that's prescription or otherwise, smoking. Now, smoking is used often for grief, and that could be smoking cigarettes, smoking pot. People with porn issues or excessive masturbation, excessive sex. Like there are people that every time they're insecure in relationships or they don't want to feel something because it actually creates creates the endorphins so that you are numb to pain. So people become obsessive masturbators or they have to have sex all the time. That's a mechanism. People that overeat. So the difference of knowing, okay, that was a great meal versus I'm bored, so I'm going to eat, there's nothing to do, or I'm feeling uncomfortable, so I'm going to eat so that I'm feeling the discomfort of how distended my stomach feels, how full my stomach feels, so that it becomes physical pain. This is people with eating addictions, and I've dealt with this a lot in counseling, is there's so much physical pain from eating so much that I don't have to think about what's hurting my heart, what's going on in my mind. And that is a big reason how eating addictions begin. So here's another one, negative self-talk. And I tell people, if you're doing this negative self-talk, how would you speak to someone that you loved that was having this same problem? Would you be that harsh with them? So the answer most likely is going to be no, and especially if you're listening to my podcast. So be kind to yourself. Okay, another mechanism, too much TV or streaming or online, just constant. That blue light is not good for us. It affects our ability to sleep soundly and sufficiently. It affects our brain waves. It affects everything. It creates a slight irritation in the body with too much of that. So that is not good. Stay away from that computer and that phone and all those Zoom calls. And excessively, if you have to, for work or connection, that's a difference. But actually pace this. Put this down as a pacing. Another mechanism, people that are constantly busy. They just stay busy. Appointment, this. Even in these times of this great pause, there is still all this busyness. And what's happening is the question is asking yourself, am I busy because I'm filled with passion and motivation and creativity? Or am I busy because I want to prevent feeling the moment because something deeper is coming up and I don't want to do reflection right now, so I'm using this as a mechanism. Another one is extreme emotional outbursts. So you hit a range from one scale to the next probably very quickly, and it could be just erratic. So is this your emotional behavior? And some people use emotions, anger, raging, hysteria, crying, all that as a mechanism to keep people away from them. So it's used to keep a separation. Social media. So this is too much reading, too much posting. I have to watch this with myself. I have found Mondays are my official non-social media day. Like I'll do my French and I'll do a couple of things online, but I don't really read about politics or the virus or any of that. And I'm telling you, I'm really liking Mondays now. So I'm like, hey, if I do that one day, why don't I do that more days? And then excessive posting. Like, do our friends want to see all this? And is it inspiring stuff or is it a downer? Are we educating? And what's the line? Like, keep finding that balance of what's the line. So, and is it only excessive negative content, or can we, like, enrich people's lives? Can we inspire people? Can we, like, educate them? There are things that we have to know. This is a political year. There's so much lies out there. This is just, it's very challenging. Anyways, we do have to stay informed, but it's finding that balance where it doesn't take us over and it doesn't drive all of our friends and family crazy because it's all we talk about. Another mechanism is speaking toxically. So, how many of us know this? So, where people are argumentative all the time, or all they bring up is the doom and gloom, and they're always pointing out what doesn't work or what wasn't said. So, they're constantly in a very narrow view or perspective. Blessings to them. It must be very painful. Okay. Staying stagnant. Physically, no movement or exercise other than walking around and doing your life of distraction. So no movement, no like intentional stretching or yoga or qigong or tai chi or any of those things. Okay, staying in your head, spinning loops of thoughts. So it's just that same loop of we're never going to get through this. This is going to get worse, and it could be crazy making. Another unhealthy mechanism is excessive talking. You just nonstop talking, and you're unable to listen to others or see others' view. So let's turn this to the positive or healthy coping mechanisms to help us adapt to what is. Connection, either if we're doing it on Zoom or phone calls or in person, that is a very healthy way of coping with changes and what's going on. Exercise of any kind, anything intentional, even if it's brisk walking, taking your dog for a walk, going for a walk in the park, being in nature, sitting outside, looking out a window if you're in an apartment or a city, anywhere, find a tree, find the blue sky, hopefully, find something, listen to the birds. Cuddling is a very healthy mechanism if it's with your partner or your child or your friend or family member or a pet, your dog, cat, bunny, bird, whatever, fish. Cuddling is a beautiful thing. Okay, journaling. This is very healthy. Everyone who listens to me knows I'm a big journaling fan. So we could do a journaling a couple different ways. Either daily, where I'm journaling my thoughts, and again, 10 minutes is sufficient. Or if I'm noticing I'm on the edge of negative thinking, I may, where it becomes emotional and I get a little spun out, I may want to do journaling with call it a fact check list. Meaning, find out what is logical, what is real, what is happening versus lies versus exaggeration versus I'm just working myself up and there's no reason for it. I mean, this is real stuff with this virus. Like, how close is it coming to you? Will it affect you and your family and friends? Or when will it affect you? And will it be till death? Will it be just you're sick for a couple of days? Like, what is the extent this is affecting us? And this isn't leaving people for a long time. They're talking about having a virus, having a vaccine, I suspect to have a actually effective one, I believe in science. It's not going to be happening for who knows. I don't know how long, but again, blessings to all of us. Let's hope this happens. Okay, another healthy mechanism is talking it out with a trusted person that you care about to either give you feedback or just hold space and say, can you listen to me? Another self-talk is to ask yourself, is this true or is this helpful? So that's a little bit like fact-checking, where you're checking in to really help maintain excessive anxiety, where is this helping me by doing these thought processes, or is this helpful at this time? Those are good check-ins. Creativity of any kind, again, dancing, singing, painting, writing, all of those are healthy mechanisms. Coping skills, sports, movement, yoga, weights, tennis, golf, all of those, very healthy. TV and movies, when you're doing it to supplement time, to do something for entertainment, like something funny, something inspirational, as opposed to horror movies and reality shows that are just tearing people apart, like Jerry Springer in the day, and just like, how about like using it for the original, why the movie industry began, for our entertainment, for something inspiring and grand and all of that. That's what I so love movies. Anyways, passion projects that will help others, that will help fulfill your goals, your purpose, that will help the community or your family or the world. Deep breathing throughout the day, to be conscious of the moments you're breathing in, breathing out. That cleansing breath is very, very important. Now this coping tool I'm going to cop to because it's one of mine. So games on your phone. I tend to be a words with friends. I do it often. I do it to help pass time. I do it when I don't have anything else that I need to be doing. I do it when I'm watching some mindless thing on TV because it doesn't need my full attention. But when I find that I am on my phone constantly doing it, I see that I need to check in with that. If I'm doing phone games or video games, instead of moving myself forward, instead of advancing, what do I really want to do? Back to that question in the beginning, what part of me needs to die so that what part could emerge? Like, what part am I not bringing out or utilizing that I really want to cultivate in myself? That if I were to have this ideal life, even with so many uncertain circumstances happening on the planet, like, what do I need to cultivate more in myself? So this is how we're checking in when we're looking at these mechanisms, these behaviors, these belief systems, to see, is it preventing like our authentic self from moving in to have this ultimate life? Anyways, so also checking in daily. So this I talk about all the time, where you wake up, you pee, you brush your teeth, whatever you do, and then you check in with yourself. How is Samana today? What is happening? Scan my body. Do I feel alert? Do I feel rested? Do I feel a little tired? Can I go easy on myself today? Do I have a lot of energy and I'm going to do an extra intense workout or a couple different workouts throughout the day? Like, what am I going to do with it? Do I want to cook something new and creative? I'm waiting on my sewing machine thanks to my sister and my mother. I can't wait. I'm going to actually make some of my masks and start sewing some shirts, and used to design clothes when I was young, and maybe I'll start, who knows? There's plenty of time to do so many things. Why not? So turn our thoughts when we're finding that we're having these anxieties or life is really challenging and it's hard to adapt, then to turn your thoughts into a positive action that will make you feel better. So that's, in a sense, called redirecting your energy. So I'm noticing that I'm starting to have an anxiety attack, or I'm starting to feel overwhelmed or hopeless or something. And instead, I want to redirect my energy. So what is something I could do? I would always tell my students, jump up and down, just bounce, put on music or something and bounce for a minute, do something to move it around. Or I cleaned out my closet this week. This was a big thing for me. I'm thinking, okay, if there was one thing I've avoided, what is it? It was my closet. I realized that I had a box that I had from Maui. I actually moved to an apartment the first year in Austin and then moved to this house where I'm at now for 4 years, and I never unpacked it. It was like a treasure. I had some great wax in there from Spa Luna, 2 cans. I'm so happy because they no longer make that wax and it's heaven. I found like sandalwood powder, which is like worth the weight of gold right now. You can't even get it anymore because sandalwood's almost extinct. I was so happy, and that was basically this big box in my closet and that I threw all these piles of clothes on top of. And I found all these new clothes that aren't new. They just were hidden. And I washed everything and folded everything, and I have a whole new wardrobe. It's very exciting. So it was like shopping without spending money. So that is redirecting your energy in a positive way. And you're not going to think, oh, I want to clean out my closet, or I want to do this, but you're going to notice your energy feels stuck or uncomfortable or unpleasant or unidentifiable. I don't know how I'm feeling. That is a sense of a numbing. That's a sense of it needs direction. It needs, let's get clarity here. Let's get those neurons going in my brain. So, anyways, that's redirecting. So the other is reframing. So reframing energy, for instance, is if I say that, okay, many people that know me, when I counsel them or even friends, and I hear them say something in a negative phrase, I usually say, can I add to that, or can I suggest another way of approaching that? And for instance, if I say I'm totally alone right now, and then I reframe it to I'm fortunate to have all this time to work on myself and to understand myself more. You see how that one gives space to it, as opposed to I'm a victim and this is hard and it's a defined box. So be aware it's important that we don't invalidate our feelings, because this is how most of our wounds were created, is our belief that others have invalidated us. Either we're invisible or insignificant or didn't matter, or their needs were stronger than ours and we got like hidden or invisible or discounted. So don't do that to yourself. I want you to stay curious and know that we can alter these shifts to be in a positive frame, and just learning how to say the word. So reframing it is the ultimate awareness of our choice of words in a conversation. So this is if I'm speaking to another person or my self-talk. So often reframing it. Again, if you're someone that can help someone see it in a more positive way, you need to ask permission. Can I suggest another way of looking at that or saying that? And another example. Someone says, I'm broke and I feel hopeless. Now that could be a very real feeling for so many people right now. And I would suggest maybe try many things are changing and I'm showing up the best I can to learn new ways to adapt. Now say both of those phrases to yourself. I'm broke and feel hopeless. And when you say that, how does that feel in your body? Like, how does it feel in your heart and your chest? For me, I right away feel that my shoulders round forward and I tend to collapse a little bit in my posture, and I feel small and it feels tight. And then when I say many things are changing and I'm showing up the best way I can to learn new ways to adapt, my shoulders are back, my heart is open, my mind is open and expansive. I'm curious, and I'm saying, I don't know everything, but I'm here. I'm adapting to what is. I've said this one before. My favorite definition of enlightenment is the ability to adapt to one's environment. Can you see the potential we all have right now to become enlightened through such tragic and unknown times? Can we see the gem, that speck, that seed amongst all this tragedy and pain and chaos and deception, and see this is the gem? This is what I'm learning, is how to adapt, how to see the difference when I'm too much in one mechanism, when I'm not being authentic, and I want to strip that falseness away. I want to peel that layer off and expose it to myself and to people I care about, raw and real, and say, this is who I am. And that feels good. And yeah, I'm getting to know myself. I hope you get to know me. That's when there's real connection. So when we're distressed and the mental tools are not working, we need to check in and just keep seeing, what do we need? What do we need to help us feel this sense of balance? So David Garrison and myself, both life coaches, we are doing our second Zoom event online next week on Saturday, May 16th from 3 to 4:40 p.m. Central Time. And you can join our Facebook Be a Relationship Architect group. I post wonderful relationship articles on there often. And I get some people engaging, and I will answer you. And I've had a lot of people private message me, and I've gotten a lot of counseling sessions from it. So I'm still doing counseling. I was charging $100 an hour or 2 sessions for $150. I'm now charging $75 a session, or sliding scale. If you're not working or furloughed or whatever's going, just approach me. I'm here to help. I'm in a great place. I'm doing so much personal work that my whole purpose and mission in life is to be as clear and authentic as I can be. And the more work I do inside myself, I've always seen how Spirit, God, Jesus, whoever you believe it is, your higher self will bring others to you shortly after you do your own work with similar issues, that you can help them from your own experiences. So I have lots of stuff, lots of inner child stuff that I'm going to talk about next week in my podcast. So our event meeting is called Summertime Self-Love, Learning Self-Love. So my 2 specialties are self-love tools and relationships. And what do those have to do with each other? As I've said over and over, we cannot have a healthy relationship with a long-lasting partner, intimate partner, or family member, or co-workers, or roommates, or friends, until we have that harmonious, that understood relationship with ourselves. So, adapting to what is. In our life, as so much is changing by the moment, so much is impermanent, and understanding with compassion, noticing what our mechanisms are. Some mechanisms need to stay there, and some need to be thrown out. It's time to tear it up, rewrite it, because was that mechanism from a time that no longer is relevant? Like, do I see one of my mechanisms in those lists that I discussed that, yes, I created that a long time ago? And then you could start to look to see at what age do you believe you started that mechanism? And if you could look under that layer and ask, what was the pain or tragedy or the loss that was happening, the need that wasn't met, that you needed that false persona just to survive, just to adapt? And those questions will get you somewhere. So join us. We're charging $0 to $10 donations for our Zoom event, and you need to register to get a link, and I'd love to see you and all of my Hawaii people, and many blessings to everyone, and happy Mother's Day to all of those mothers out there, and enjoy the full moon and all the howling, and many mahalos. Aloha.